This morning, where are the documents and are they in one piece? Sources tell CNN that former President Trump would routinely rip up documents, drafts, reading materials, and he took several boxes, according to the Washington Post, more than a dozen boxes of White House records to Mar-a-Lago after leaving the White House. This is raising concerns about his preservation of presidential records, as is required by federal law. The boxes at Mar-a-Lago contain several personal mementos, including correspondence with Kim Jong-un, which Trump once described as love letters. The Washington Post first did this reporting. Joining us now is presidential historian Lindsay Chervinsky. First of all, just when you see this reporting, that, first of all, the former president would rip documents up. Second of all, that he took 15 boxes with him at Mar-a-Lago. What jumps out to you?
Well, it's a pretty shocking disregard for the Presidential Records Act. A little bit of a tear of one piece of paper here and there, or perhaps an accidental discard can be understood as maybe just a slip. But this is a concentrated effort to really avoid the accountability that is built into that legislation.
What did you think about, he took the letter from Obama, he took the letter from Kim Jong-un. Are some of these things oversights and are some of these things obvious, considering he clearly has had his opinions about people violating records acts like Hillary Clinton in the past?
That's right. It does sort of strike of a little bit of hypocrisy given the concern about Hillary Clinton's emails. My understanding is that President Trump also took the famous map that he drew on with a Sharpie having to do with the hurricane trajectory. And so my guess is these are items that either he cared about personally or he might have thought would be embarrassing to his political futures and therefore wanted to keep them private and in his own hands.
So as you said, there's a law here. There's the National Records Act, but there's not like a National Archives police squad to go and crack down on people who violate this. A lot of this is done on handshakes and winks and stuff. So what happens here? I mean, have there been prosecutions for this?
It's a great question, and you're right. The National Archives, while they have very diligent archivists, they don't have a police squad. They did send reminders for the duration of the Trump presidency to the White House counsel's office and Don McGahn, reminding them that President Trump did have this obligation to preserve these documents and to try and collect them and save them. There has never been a prosecution under the Presidential Records Act because no president has ever flouted it to this extent. There are other punishments that are written into the legal code that are separate from this legislation that could perhaps be enforced. I am, of course, not a lawyer, but I think the big question here is what happens next? Because a president has never tried to flout the law in this way, the enforcement, the punishment, whether or not the Department of Justice or a U.S. attorney would be willing to take up that case is an open question.
And just real quick, Lindsay, you mentioned maybe some of these things could be embarrassing. One of the things that occurred to me was maybe they could be valuable, right? I mean, if you're going to auction something off, you auction off the funky map with the Sharpie, you auction off the letter with Obama, the letters with Kim Jong-un. These are things of value.
Yeah, it's a great point. They're both monetarily valuable, but it's also raises the question of, are they valuable to the state? Are they important for national security? What sort of state secrets are included in these documents?
Yeah.
The whole point of this legislation is, of course, to keep things safe, but then also to ensure that there's a public record going forward and that the next administration has access to these things.
Lindsay Chervinsky, great to have you on this morning. Thanks so much. We should note that,
Great to be with you.
Lindsay's the author of The Cabinet, George Washington and the Creation of an American Institution.